private member legislative business. Bill for introduction. The Animal Factory Farming Regulation Bill 2020. Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi.
I beg to introduce the bill.
The question is that leave to be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor will please say aye.
Aye.
Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Yes, sir. Please.
वापस करिए साहब, वापस करिए.
Please. Please. Abhishek Manu Singhvi ji, to introduce the bill.
I introduce the bill, sir.
Dr. Karodilal Meena? No. Not present. The Victim and Witness Protection and Assistance Bill. Dr. Ami Ajnik?
I move the bill.
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor will please say ayes. Aye. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Please introduce the Ami Ajnik. Please introduce the bill.
Yes. I introduced the bill.
Oh, yeah. The Indian Penal Code Amendment Bill 2020. Ms. Saroj Pandey to move for leave. Not present. The Code of Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill 2020. Dr. Amar Patnaik to move for leave to introduce the Code of Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill 2020.
I introduce.
So the question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor will please say ayes.
Aye.
Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Introduce the bill.
So I introduce the bill, sir.
Please, please, please. Please, sir. The Incest Offences and Sexual Abuse of Females in Family Prevention Bill. Dr. Sasmit Patra to move for leave to introduce the Incest Offences and Sexual Abuses of Females in Family Prevention Bill 2020.
Sir, I move for leave to introduce a bill to define the offences related to incest and sexual abuse of females in family and prescribe the special procedure for punishment for the offences relating to incest and sexual abuse of females in family and matters connected therewith and incidental thereto.
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill.
Yes.
Those in favor will please say ayes.
Aye.
Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Introduce the bill.
I introduce the bill, sir.
The Constitution Amendment Bill 2020, substitution of Articles 331 and 333. Dr. Sasmit Patra to move for leave to introduce the Constitution Amendment Bill 2020.
Sir, I move for leave to introduce a bill further to amend the Constitution of India relating to provide reservation for transgenders in Parliament and state assemblies.
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor, please say ayes.
Aye.
Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
Sir, I introduce the bill.
The third language bill, Srimati Shanta Chaitri, to move for leave to introduce the third language bill 2020.
Sir, I move for leave to introduce a bill to provide for compulsory third language education from primary to senior secondary level in all the schools throughout the country, to make it imperative for each student to study a third language other than Hindi, English or the student's mother tongue.
Hello.
From one of the languages mentioned in the 8th schedule to the Constitution, and for making it obligatory for the central and state government to provide requisite infrastructure for the purpose and matters connected therewith and incidental thereto. Sir.
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor, please say ayes. Those in favor, please say ayes. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
Sir, I introduce the bill.
The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Amendment Bill 2020. Sri Vijay Sai Reddy? Not present. The Constitution Amendment Bill 2020, insertion of new Article 21B. Sri Vijay Sai Reddy? Not present. Prevention of Suicide in Youth Bill 2020. Sir Amar Shankar Sable.
Sir,
To move for leave to introduce the Prevention of Suicide in Youth Bill 2020.
सर, युवाओं में आत्महत्या का निवारण विधेयक 2020 इस विधेयक को मैं प्रस्तावित करता हूं।
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor, please say ayes. Those against, please say noes. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Mr.
सर, मैं आपके अनुमति से इस विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करता हूं।
The Backward Areas Development Bill, Board Bill 2020. Mr. Amar Shankar Sable to move for leave to introduce the Backward Areas Development Board Bill 2020.
सर, मैं पिछड़ा क्षेत्र विकास बोर्ड विधेयक 2020 इस विधेयक को प्रस्तावित करता हूं।
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor, please say ayes. Those against will please say noes. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Mr. Sable.
मैं आपके अनुमति से इस विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करता हूं।
The Public Health Prevention, Control and Management of Epidemics Bill 2020. Mr. Sanjay Singh? Not present. Bill for consideration and passing. Further consideration of the following motion moved by Dr. Narendra Jadhav on the 6th December 2019. The bill to provide for measures to ensure national security while promoting foreign investment to reform the process of examination of such investment vis-a-vis their effect, if any, on national security, and to establish a committee on foreign investment to effectively guard against the risk to national security posed by certain type of foreign investment in financial services, critical infrastructure and technology sector, and for matters connected therewith and incidental thereto be taken into consideration. On the 7th February 2020, Anil Agarwal, Dr. Surani Swami. Anil Agarwal, to continue, is not present. So, Dr. Subramanian Swami, please.
How much time has been allotted to me, or how many seconds?
Take it up.
Okay.
No time is left, but anyhow, we can speak.
But you are from Tamil Nadu, so you'll be a little generous with me.
Here, nothing, no state here.
Oh. Sir, this bill I rise to support because it calls for a very constructive body to be made. It's called the Committee for Foreign Investment, so that foreign investments are
No one
vetted
else, no?
for national security purposes. As it is, sir, the Home Ministry is usually involved when the foreign investment is considered, but it is done in a bureaucratic way, and in many times it's not even adhered to. And I can give many examples of that, but I don't think that it's appropriate just now to give because it will have to take up a lot of time. But the fact is that we do need a committee of very well-placed people who decide the national security angle, whether to give clearance on the basis of national security for the purposes of this foreign investment. In our country, foreign investment is not a very big proportion of total investment. It's still below 5%. And therefore, it's not a matter for which it will have a big tragic effect or a large effect on the total investment if any project is rejected because it didn't meet certain strict criteria of national security. I would first like to begin by saying there are 4 kinds of foreign investment. The first type is what we call as the foreign direct investment, where foreign money comes through companies to buy shares in existing companies. And there are limits prescribed varying from company to company and the sector to sector. The second type of foreign investment is what is called as foreign portfolio investment, which is really basically not for owning shares, but by buying stocks and bonds in the stock market. So it's basically a speculative thing, and this money comes from abroad through what is now called as participatory notes, which require a very close scrutiny. The third thing is official flows, like from the IMF, World Bank, and between governments. And that, in my opinion, is now not a major for us a major consideration. During the 50s, 60s, 70s, we were literally depending on foreign countries. We were depending on the IMF and the World Bank. But now we are a much more developed country and we are not depending on it. So I won't say anything much about it. And finally is commercial loans, which are really bank loans. And there is a short-term loan and there is a long-term loan. Short-term loan, the conditions are very limited. The imposed conditions by the banks. And therefore, it is...
Solicit order, please, the House. When a member is speaking, kindly, please, don't disturb. Please.
It's a dry subject, so there must be... Anyway. So therefore, the short-term, long-term, there is always a preference for short-term. And this short-term, you see, sometimes people take money. It happened once in 1986 when Rajiv Gandhi became Prime Minister, and he opened the possibilities for companies to take short-term loans from abroad. But the companies took it for the purpose of long-term uses, such like machinery and so on, because during the period of the Soviet model that we were practicing, many of these machines had become out of date. So to buy new machines and so on, instead of taking long-term loans, they took short-term loans because it was easier. And that became due for payment within a short period of 3 to 5 years. And that's what led to the foreign exchange crisis of 1990, with which I am familiar because at that time I had become a minister and I had to directly deal with it as a Minister for Commerce. So therefore, that short-term loans have ruined many economies. For instance, Japan and East Asia had a major crisis in 1997, and they hardly recovered even today from that big collapse, because they took short-term loans and invested in long-term projects like real estate and long gestation period machines. And then one day, the American bond market raised the interest rates, so all these short-term loans wanted to come out. And they were not in a position to repay it. So Japan, then many companies collapsed, so did in Korea and so on. And that led to a collapse of the economy. So therefore, short-term loans are very dangerous, and they certainly need a great deal of scrutiny. So with these 4 things, what we must understand is, when it comes to foreign direct investment, of which there is so much newspaper hype, we must make sure that it is not that causes unemployment in our country. Now take the case of Walmart. We may not be socialist, we may not be left-wing, but we can still oppose Walmart coming to our country because Walmart takes finances from American banks, and that American banks give loans at 2% interest rate. Then they come to our country and they use our cheap labor. As a consequence, all those traders who are there, who have been practicing this trade for a long time on very small margins, they all become unemployed. And Walmart, all it does is it buys from the market vegetables and puts up a nice showroom and displays it there. It's a totally unnecessary technology. It was okay for China because their service sector had been destroyed during the strict communist rule. But for us, we have crores and crores of traders at the rural level. So this foreign direct investment should not have been allowed. But unfortunately, they have come in through the back door, and today they're playing havoc. Similarly, in the case of defense sectors, we have to make sure whether we want foreign direct investment or we want transfer of technology. And the transfer of technology is extremely important. And that transfer of technology, we must see, said sometimes it might be better to buy the company which is producing these defense equipment rather than buy the products of these defense equipment. So I can give examples, but it's not necessary. But the most damaging thing which we have not been able to do anything about is what they call participatory notes, which is a foreign portfolio investment method, which is essentially black money from India going abroad through the Hawala route and then coming back.
How much more time you need?
Yes, I just need about 2 minutes more. It is black money going from the Hawala route abroad and then coming back as participatory notes through from the country which is called Mauritius. And Mauritius has no taxes due. They don't have to pay taxes if a company comes from Mauritius. And then they play on our stock market. Most of our stock markets going up and down is due to these participatory notes. This should be in the national interest band because the money is mostly black money going through Hawala routes abroad and coming back in the name of participatory notes, which doesn't even have who owns those notes. It's just got a number on it. So therefore, I would say that today it is very, very necessary. It's a subject which requires great deal of attention. And in this short period, I just want to say that it is a very good suggestion he has made to create a committee on foreign direct investment and national security. And therefore, I support this private member's bill, and I hope the House will pass it.
Mr. Minister. Minister.
Thank you, sir. Let me first thank Mr. Narendra Jadhav for introducing this bill on the foreign investment in financial services, critical infrastructure and technology affecting National Security Regulation Bill 2018, and also thank all the members who have participated in this. So the bill, as far as the member has introduced, sought to provide for measures to ensure national security for promoting foreign investment and to reform the process of examining of such investment vis-a-vis their effect, if any, on national security, and to establish a committee on foreign investment to effectively safeguard the risk or against the risk to national security posed by certain types of foreign investment in financial services, critical infrastructure and technology sector, and for matters connected therewith and incidental thereto. Sir, I appreciate the concern shown by the member and other members who have participated. Some have agreed to this, some have not agreed to this. Sir, recognizing the risk associated with the foreign investments in certain sectors, sir, the foreign direct investment policy of Government of India has already placed sensitive sectors and activities in the approval route. Some are in the direct route, some are in the approval route, but the sensitive sectors and activities are put in the approval route. Sir, investment in sensitive sectors such as broadcasting, telecommunications, satellites establishment and operations, private security agencies, defense, civil aviation, and mining and mineral, separation of titanium-bearing mineral and ores, its value addition and integrated activities. Investment from Pakistan and Bangladesh are subjected to security clearance by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Sir, further, all proposals are forwarded to the Ministry of External Affairs for information. Sir, the proposed bill, as I said earlier, seeks to setting up of Committee on Foreign Investment. Sir, in this behalf, it may be appropriate to mention that the government on June 2017, with a view to provide ease of doing business and promote the principle of maximum governance and minimum government, abolished the erstwhile Foreign Investment Promotion Board, FIPB. Hence, setting up of a committee on foreign investment will be a retrograde step. सर, जहां सरकार ने अपनी मंशा दिखाई है कि कहीं ना कहीं ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस की बात हो या मैक्सिमम गवर्नेंस मिनिमम गवर्नमेंट की बात हो, तो उस कदम से अब पीछे हटने का कोई तर्क बनता नहीं। और जहां तक एमएनसीज का खतरा लगता है कि उनके माध्यम से नेशनल सिक्योरिटी को या बाकी आपके इश्यूज़ को आता है, तो जैसा मैंने पहले ही कहा कि हमने सेक्टर्स अलग अलग किए हैं और जो संवेदनशील सेक्टर्स हैं उसके लिए जो रूट अपनाया गया है, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ होम अफेयर्स के अलावा अलग अलग गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स भी उस पर अपने राय भी देती है, सुझाव भी देती है और उसके बाद इसको अप्रूवल मिलती है। सर, एज पर द एक्सटेंट फ्रेमवर्क गाइडलाइंस फॉर असेसमेंट ऑफ प्रपोजल्स for national security clearance, the MHA and other administrative ministries exercise the required due diligence besides review of compliance status of various conditionalities as per FEMA by RBI. And sir, the SEBI also maintains constant vigil in the markets and in case of any abnormality takes appropriate action against the concerned entities. So, sir, the advanced risk management mechanisms comprising of continuous monitoring and surveillance have been put in place to promote safe, transparent, and efficient markets and to protect stock markets' integrity. Sir, the systems and the practices are reviewed continuously and modified to meet the emerging needs. Moreover, sir, the issue of reviewing the security screening process is already receiving attention at the National Security Council Secretariat and have held a number of meetings in this regard. Sir, as the government is seized of the issues and is in the process of reviewing existing security screening process in the light of emerging global scenario, national priorities covering the entire gamut of aspects, including critical infrastructure, critical input and technologies, etc., with a view to suggest a suitable mechanism for the purpose, I think, sir, it will be premature to have legislation in India on the lines of Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act 2018 of USA. Sir, as far as the NBFCs are concerned, sir, NBFCs are regulated by RBI and registered with the RBI, and FDI is allowed. Sir, in sensitive sectors such as telecom, civil aviation, etc., the downstream investment is as per specific sector approval and due mechanism is followed. If it is core infrastructure company, prior government approval is required and ownership limit of the NBFCs cannot be lower than the FDI limit, that is 100% allowed in NBFCs registered with the RBI and SEBI. Sir, as far as the issue of defense was raised, in defense, sir, it is only up to 49% is allowed under the automatic route, and the beyond 49% government approval is required. So there are checks and balances in our approach, sir. And as I said earlier, as far as the ease of doing business is concerned, we have taken certain steps as far as we have abolished the FIPB. And for other sensitive sectors, there is a due mechanism which is followed by the government. And I think, as I said earlier, it won't be right to have a committee for this. So I request the member to withdraw this bill. That is my humble submission, sir.
Thank you. The mover, Dr. Narendra Jadhav. Would you like to speak? Reply.
Yeah. Closer.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, sir. Sir, I had moved this motion in the last session relating to my private member's bill titled The Foreign Investment in Financial Services, Critical Infrastructure and Technology Affecting National Security Regulation Bill 2018. Honorable Minister has already responded, and I will come back to the points that he has made. But I must start by thanking the House for a long full 2.5 hour discussion. I'm really happy that there was a full discussion on this bill in the last session. I'm also delighted to note that there was a widespread support to the bill cutting across the party lines. While thanking all the esteemed members and colleagues who have eloquently spoken on the bill, I would like to take this opportunity, sir, to respond to some of the objections which have been raised in the discussion by honorable members as well as by the honorable minister. Sir, while highlighting the national security dimension of FDI, what my private member bill underscores is the imperative need for the scrutiny of the incoming investment. To that effect, my bill actually proposes setting up a high-level committee on foreign investment. Most honorable members, as well as the honorable minister, those who oppose the proposal, they argued about two things. One is that we need more FDI. Two, why create another layer or a bureaucratic hurdle in the decision-making process and thus discourage incoming foreign direct investment? Let me respond to this objection first. Do we need more foreign direct investment? Definitely, yes. Although I note with satisfaction that foreign exchange reserves, which had once dwindled in 1991 to the level that Dr. Subramaniam Swamy was referring to, in 1991, our foreign exchange reserves had dwindled to a level of $1 billion, and today they are $450 billion plus. Even our foreign direct investment has increased by leaps and bounds over the last few years, and this is something which is most welcome. And still, I maintain that we do need more foreign direct investment so as to accelerate economic growth and to promote and to create more jobs. The question that I'm raising through this bill is foreign direct investment at what cost? Do we want FDI at the cost of national security? Most certainly not. Let me give you an example. While the spread of coronavirus, with the spread of coronavirus, we have banned visitors from a number of countries, and rightly so. Do we not need the foreign exchange reserves that is coming from the tourists? Yes, of course we do, but not at the cost of national security. Well, that is precisely the point that I'm making about the FDI. Sir, as to the argument of creating a bureaucratic hurdle, I think it is possible, sir, to create a less obtrusive and more effective mechanism as in the United States and in several other Asian countries. So creating a committee by definition doesn't have to become obtrusive. And it is, as the minister said, it is not a retrograde step because we have removed the FIPB, which was there functional earlier. This is not a retrograde step because all countries in the changed environment world over, all countries in the world have safeguard mechanisms about the incoming foreign direct investment. We are an exception to that. In addition to, sir, please also note that the most criticism about the bill, most people have supported, but those who have criticized in part, they have criticized only the committee aspect. And I have maintained that it is possible to create a committee which is less obtrusive and more effective. But in addition to the FDI reviewing committee, sir, my bill had also proposed two more solutions. One, the first solution that I had suggested, in addition to creation of the committee, first was placing a limit of 10% in individual foreign ownership in FDI. One. Second, placing a limit of 74% on combined foreign ownership of NBFCs as it presently applies to private sector banks. Regrettably, none of the members nor the minister took cognizance of these two very important suggestions which are there in my proposal. Sir, the main point is that we need to move away from the present policy of "Aao jao ghar tumhara" to something which is carefully scrutinized before the incoming foreign direct investment is allowed in the country. The Honorable Minister, in his own response, talked about a few things. I would like to respond to that. There were 4 or 5 very important things that he said, that recognizing the risk in foreign direct investment, we already have some Vedanshil sectors, as he called it. They are already on the approval basis. This is only partly true. Take the case of NBFCs. No country in the world, sir, has 100% ownership by foreigners allowed in NBFCs. India is probably the only country of the size that we have, which allows foreign direct investment into NBFCs in an automatic route, and the extent is 100%. This is what I meant by "Aao jao ghar tumhara." What is the foreign direct investment proportion in financial sector in China? It is 1.5%. Most countries, including developing countries in Asia, have placed all kinds of limits of 25%, 35%, so on. We are the only country where there is no constraint at all. It was also stated that due diligence is done by appropriate ministries, RBI, SEBI, and so on, which I note. The National Security Council also examines certain sensitive proposals. I'm glad to note that, and I would also like to share with this House that when this proposal was discussed with the Honorable Prime Minister, a meeting was organized with the National Security Council where I made a presentation, and these details were shared with them, and there was a very good debate in National Security Council as well as in the Ministry of Commerce sometime back last year. The Honorable Minister also said that there are checks and balances already in place, so why go back and put some more restrictions? I think there is no room for complacency at all. We need to, we need to be careful. My basic contention, sir, in submitting this bill was to drive home the point that in this interconnected world, with rapidly changing financial technology and in absence of a proper Data Protection Act in our country, we need to exercise extraordinary caution even in welcoming FDI. And this point has finally seems to have been driven home. With that, I want to once again thank all the honorable members who supported the bill and who eloquently expressed their views, and I, of course, thank the minister as well. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Dr. Narendra, are you withdrawing the bill or should I put the motion to vote?
My basic purpose was to drive home the point that we need to exercise extraordinary caution even while welcoming FDI, and in the light of the assurances given by the Honourable Minister, I withdraw my bill, sir. Thank you very much.
Has he leave of the House to withdraw the bill? The bill is withdrawn. Now, when the bills were introduced, Ms. Saroj Pandey was called. She was not present. Now she has come. So I call Ms. Saroj Pandey to move for leave to introduce the Indian Penal Code Amendment Bill 2020.
माननीय उपसभापति जी, मैं प्रस्ताव करती हूं कि भारतीय दंड संहिता 1860 का और संशोधन के लिए भारतीय दंड संहिता संशोधन विधेयक 2020 को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति दी जाए.
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor will please say ayes. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Ms. Saroj Pandey.
माननीय उपसभापति जी, मैं विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करती हूं.
Thank you. On further consideration of the following motion moved by Professor M.V. Rajiv Gowda on the 26th July of 2019, that the bill further to amend the Representation of the People Act 1951 be taken into consideration. On the 6th December 2019, the intervention of the minister concerned and the reply of the mover of the bill was deferred to the next session, as suggested by the Minister of State in the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and agreed to by the House. The minister may therefore be called upon to make his intervention, after which the mover of the bill may be called upon. Now the minister.
Sir, I am grateful to the House and to the Chair for accommodating me on the last occasion, sir. I was in some extreme personal difficulties, therefore I could not come. Honorable Member Mr. Rajiv Gowda has raised an issue of some importance and having widespread implication. Honorable Deputy Chairman, sir, with a very wide experience in the political life of the country, as many of us are also having it, the sum and substance of the bill of Mr. Gowda is that the limitations on election expenses be removed, be it Lok Sabha, be it Vidhan Sabha. And the point he has sought to canvass is that this is an artificial limit which prevents disclosure and free and fair actual state of affairs. Therefore, these artificial limitations must be completely removed. Surely, as an experienced activist, as an articulate member, he has got the right to move a bill like this. But, sir, speaking in this House, of which I had the privilege to be a member for close to 19 years, many of my parliamentary life have been baptized in this House, sir. And I can tell the honourable members that Honourable the Vice Chairperson and me both became MP for the first time on the same day. The year was 2000. That's the long association I had with Honourable the Chairperson, Deputy Chairperson. Sir, this is not a new debate which Mr. Gowda has flagged. This is an old debate which also occurred when the Constitution was being framed, there was a debate in the Constituent Assembly that India has just become free. And that too, under conditions of great turmoil, partition has happened. 1 million people were killed and 2 million were displaced. 10 लाख लोग मरे और 20 लाख displaced हुए. There was a powerful voice in the Constituent Assembly, sir, which said that we must go for a limited democracy. India is not ready for a full-scale democracy. But, sir, today, I was not even born then, sir. I need to compliment with great respect the wisdom of those leaders. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, Mr. Nehru, Sardar Patel the most. Because after having read the entire debates of Constituent Assembly, I must say I have developed a different regard for Dr. Sardar Patel. Today the House needs to know this whole minority rights panel was headed by him. There was a debate, should we give minority rights? Now India has been partitioned on the ground of religion. He said, no, India as a democracy will have to. Therefore, they held, India will have no official religion, no theocracy. Unlike Pakistan, now Bangladesh, Afghanistan, who decided to have Islamic Republic. Third, sir, very important, who should be given the right to vote? Educated, with some understanding? They said, no, if you have to make a new India, we shall trust ordinary Indians with the power of destiny of India. Regardless of his or her caste, creed, religion, education, literacy, place of birth, and most important, economic status. Let all of them seek to decide the contours of Indian democracy. So there were a lot of naysayers, will India survive? Today, 70 years down the line, what is the situation, sir? The situation is, ordinary Indians know who they are and what they owe to themselves. They know for sure they can bring about any leader, howsoever powerful, from the power, and they can bring him back to the power. They can unseat any popular political party from power and bring that to power. All this has brought about, sir, a great degree of sanity in the polity of India. But one thing more was important. Election has to be free and fair. And if election has to be free and fair, election should not be a display of naked wealth. Election should not be the election of affluence. Election should not be the election of display of rabid money power. And they did not say that, sir. It's very important. They put that in section 77 of the Representation of People Act 1951. And as you know, not only making a provision, if you violate that financial limit, under section 126, 123, clause 6, it is a corrupt practice, you can be disqualified for 6 years. Have they done like this, sir? No. They have revised it from time to time, sir. I only want to give a background, sir. It has been already changed many, many times, sir, about 4 to 5 times. And what is the latest one, sir? It was changed in 97, it was changed in 2006, and subsequently, sir. The latest is, sir, for most of the states, the Lok Sabha limit is 70 lakhs. And Vidhan Sabha limit is 28 lakhs. Including Tamil Nadu, including my state, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Bengal, whole range. For a smaller state, sir, in Goa it is 54 lakh. Andaman, Nicobar, Chandigarh, it is 54 lakh, like that. And this revision, sir, it keeps on happening. And I'm quite sure it will happen again. Now, sir, what should we do? What is the purport of the proposed bill of the Honourable Member, Mr. Gowda? He's entitled to his bill and his views too. But he's seeing only one part of it. Namely, one should honestly spend and honestly declare. I don't contest that proposition at all. But he is, perhaps with respect to him, forgetting the other larger narrative of election, accountability of the people, ordinary men can contest. Sir, with our long political experience, sir, both of us can share one thing, sir. Sir, why is it? And we are very proud of that. His party or our party or any party, except 1-2 aberrations, no big industrialist have become the chief minister of a state. Except 1-2-3 aberrations, no big industrialist has become the Prime Minister of India. And if you are having a problem of that, sir, you may recall, sir, the leader of the biggest industrial clan of India twice contested Lok Sabha elections from his own home state, and twice he was defeated. Therefore, money power is the sole power. Electoral politics is something not free from difficulty. Sir, if you have to maintain this norm, sir, we have to understand the serenity and sublimity of India's polity. सर, ये जो भारत देश है ना सर, ये भारत देश के लोकतंत्र की एक खूबसूरती है सर. लोकतंत्र, राजीव जी, लोक लाज से चलता है. और लोक लाज का ये भी तकाजा होता है कि लोक लाज में बहुत चीज दिखावटी नहीं हो. इसीलिए भारत अभी भी गांधी के सपनों का सादगी को याद रखता है. और शायद इसीलिए आप देखते होंगे कि हम लोग जो पॉलिटिक्स में हैं, अगर बहुत फ्लैम्बॉयंट होकर चलते हैं अपने ड्रेस में भी, तो जनता उसको अप्रिशिएट नहीं करती है. मैं ये कभी नहीं कहता हूं कि लोग ना पहने, ये उनका अधिकार है. लेकिन भारत के लोकतंत्र के जो लोकलाज की प्रक्रिया है, इसको समझना बहुत जरूरी है. सर, the sum and substance of the proposed bill, if accepted by the government, would simply mean no bar on election expenses. That means a rich man can spend 50 crores, 100 crore, and a poor man can't. Sir, should we allow that to happen? Sir, I know in my state still people can comfortably contest big Lok Sabha elections and even Vidhan Sabha elections much reasonably. I had the privilege to manage many of these elections, and many of them are returned money, sir. And I felt very happy. The strength of Indian democracy. There have been also aberrations, I will not deny that. But we all have to collectively work to improve the working of the system of democracy, which we are so proud of. And if this bill is accepted, sir, it will surely weaken the purity of India's electoral process. And none of us who are sitting in this house at all would reconcile ourselves to this idea. Sir, I take this point, sir, that the Election Commission need to revisit it. The last was done in 2014. This is a jurisdiction of the Election Commission, sir. Under Rule 90, sir, they fixed the time limit, expenses limits. Under the Rule 90 of the Conduct of Election Rule 1961. I am sure the Election Commission is hearing the view of us, all of us, Honorable Mr. Gowda, that we need to reflect upon changing times, sir. Sir, another issue I would like to flag today is election is the festival of democracy. Election is the festival of democracy. And while all of us respect model code of conduct, everything, including simplicity in election campaign, but with greatest respect to the institution of Election Commission, they need to reflect that while ensuring the model code of conduct, the festive nature of Indian democracy should not be lost. And so traveling in the country for the last more than 30 years in election campaign and being in charge of 8 states of India, north, south, east, west, one thing I have noticed, sir, in your state in particular, where I had the privilege to work for 5 years, sir, in every election, I see a festive mood of ordinary Indian, particularly in the rural areas. That festive mood is a big energy booster for the electoral process. That we have also to consider, sir. Yes, there are aberrations. I will never deny that. Aberrations are there, sir. And what is important is we need to trust the corrective mechanism of the inner polity of India. That we need. And our polity has risen to the occasion. So what is my concluding take? India has seen some of the biggest problems which the world has faced after independence. The issue of religion, the issue of caste, the issue of community, the issue of region, the issue of religion, the issue of reservations. Many hunger too, yes, you are right. Many became explosive too. But ultimately, the polity of India arose to the occasion. And because of parliamentary intervention, in some cases, judicial interventions, these issues were ultimately calmed. That, I think, is the sobering nature of Indian democratic polity, sir. Therefore, this sobering nature of Indian democratic polity, we need to acknowledge and respect. And Mr. Gowda, with his profound experience and learning, will consider my request, sir. If he lifts the entire limitations on expenditures in poll, that sobering element of Indian democracy will be compromised. That is my additional reason, sir. In the light of all this, sir, I don't want to speak more. I would urge Mr. Gowda that you have flagged the issue in your inimitable style. Other members have also participated. We are also alive to it. Surely, revision should happen from time to time. I would urge you to kindly withdraw your bill, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much. Now the mover of the motion, Professor Rajiv Gowda, please reply.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, sir. So first I want to thank the Minister, Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad, for his very detailed and considered response to my proposed bill. I also want to thank a number of speakers, Shri Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, Shri Manoj Jha, Shri Shiv Pratap Shukla, Shri Nishambar Prasad Nishad, Shri Rakesh Sinha, Shri Ashok Bajpai, Shri G.V.L. Narsim Rao, Shri Sudhanshu Trivedi, and others that I may have missed out. So some speakers supported my bill and some opposed. But one thing was common to all their speeches. They, like me, wanted to get rid of the negative impact of money power on politics. And I can see that the minister's speech also carries that same spirit with it. So, Shuklaji spoke about the numerous poor people and people of limited means who have been elected to parliament, to assemblies. But I must point out, sir, that the actual election expenditure would have been much more on the part of their parties and not just what that particular individual spent. So, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe pointed out that this money and muscle power in politics is a disease. So whenever there is a disease, we need to understand what is the cause of that disease. We need to diagnose the problem properly. And to some extent, the way the minister and some others have interpreted my proposal is actually a wrong diagnosis. I am not suggesting that this should become a festival of overspending of money power, that only the rich and the plutocrats should be able to succeed in a political setting. What I'm suggesting is that we need transparency. We need to make sure that every paisa spent in an election is visible cleanly and clearly to everyone so that we know who is spending how much, and then we can ask questions about where they got it and whatever else happens. What happens today because of these impractical election spending limits is that election spending is driven underground. When it is driven underground, it becomes illegitimate expenditures, and if Bihar has not been touched by this, you're blessed. Certainly in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, in Maharashtra, in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana, in numerous states, possibly even in the Northeast, what we have are the worst outcomes of money power, where voters are being bribed, because that is what ensues as a result of people trying to use black money because they cannot spend money openly. So I do not dispute that there will be great inequalities if some people can spend a lot and some people cannot. But I will give you some suggestions on how to address that. So, you quoted many of the revered leaders of modern India. I'm quoting one. Once again, who was your leader? Who was Prime Minister of India? Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And what did he say? he said that every member of parliament, I'll just finish and then I will yield.
Who are national leaders, and he's going to Tabaj.
Yes.
Both are national leaders.
Should be welcome.
Let's celebrate that.
Okay. Good.
So I'm happy that he has discovered the virtues of not just mine, but our nation's leaders who built this country. Anyway,
to be
the point-
appreciated and
Yes,
upheld,
I agree.
upheld.
I agree entirely. The basic point is, sir, Prime Minister Vajpayee said that every MP begins his career with a lie by filing false election expenditure accounts. Let us pay some respect to his views. This is exactly what he said. And we should not have a law which forces candidates to go out there and lie. A law that is broken by every member of parliament is not worth retaining. That is the central point there. So that's why I'm urging that we remove election caps. So, Mr. Narasimha Rao pointed out that the Election Commission should be going after illegitimate expenditures, and that it is toothless against illegitimate expenditures. Precisely, because it is spending all its time counting how many coffee cups have been served in an official meeting. It's counting how many cars are in a cavalcade. They're not counting or going after the illegitimate expenditures. That is what they should be focused on. That's what I basically want to point out, why this whole exercise is a charade if you have limits that are not practical. I want to quote Dr. Sahasrabudhe once more. He criticized my suggestion, somewhat in the spirit of the minister, by saying that the proposal is an abject surrender to the forces of money power. Therefore, I believe it is not a reform, it is a deform, he said. And Dr. Sahasrabudhe, I know him from before he entered here. I have visited him. He has come and spoken at IIM at my invitation to a program on women politicians that I had launched. Anyway, and for which I again called people from every party. Let me point out, sir, we're talking about reforms. But there are other examples of deforms that this government has pushed and actually promulgated. A very, very prominent one is something called electoral bonds. That, sir, is something where I can just give you 3-4 points why it totally defeats every point that the minister has just made in front of us. There is no transparency. They are opaque. They are, you do not know, the claim is that it is white money because it comes from banks. But, during demonetization, we saw how much black money was readily converted to white. This got rid of, to make electoral bonds work, they got rid of the limit on company expenditures on election contributions. Now, even shell companies can go out there and be created to contribute to electoral bonds. And round-tripping could happen. All kinds of problems could happen, all because of the great innovation that has been brought in by this government. Further, we suspect that because this information about who is contributing is available only to the government, that they can pressurize the bank and they can figure out who has contributed and who has not, that they can coerce people to contribute to electoral bonds, and then what do you end up with? You end up with 95% of the resources going to the ruling party. So this whole process, the way it was formulated, has come out in a variety of RTI applications. The Election Commission opposed it. The RBI opposed it. Numerous entities who are institutions that safeguard the sanctity of India and our democracy, which our minister was extolling, they all opposed it. And thanks to the RTI work by Commodore Lokesh Batra, Anjali Bharadwaj, the journalist Nitin Sethi, this government stands exposed in terms of what they have actually gone ahead and done in the face of solid opposition. So if you want to get rid of election deforms, if you want to cleanse the process, start now. Get rid of electoral bonds. Institute a probe against all those officials who went out there and disobeyed the instructions or the suggestions of the ECI and the RBI and pushed this through. And what was the need for this? So we have other arguments for why we need to ensure a level playing field. And how do we get there? When we talk about no money power, there is another clause which says party expenditure, there is no limit. And we have seen, and you will acknowledge, that the BJP is the party that has spent the hugest amount of money. If you want, You can take the election expenditure accounts of the BJP. No. That is fine. I am pointing out that political parties spend a huge amount of money because there's that loophole. Fix that too. Fix that too. Until you fix all these, it is like you're giving me a sermon. I am not in church, sir, to listen to sermons. I am here to fix the system, to make sure that our democracy works and that an ordinary professor like me can contest an election without having to sell my soul. So there are other solutions, and those solutions include finding a way to ensure that people can raise resources legally and openly. Today, with this low limit, even if we raise open contributions of 70 lakhs, you cannot compete with somebody who is spending 5 times, 10 times, 20 times the amount. All you need to do is raise a certain amount of resources to be able to have a credible campaign, and that needs to be facilitated as cleanly and openly as possible. So for that, I suggest that the minister work to set up a national election fund. Instead of electoral bonds, give every voter of India a voter bond of 100 rupees. Just like we used to have a 4 Ana membership of the Congress party, which ensured that the people of India owned the freedom movement, which is what has given us this opportunity to engage in this debate in this August House. So let this be given, and let those voters contribute that 100 rupees to the candidate of their choice. Let there be a matching fund which ensures that those who can collect significant amount of contributions from large numbers of people, that they too will be able to be matched with some government contribution, and that they will be able to mount a credible campaign. So we talk about $5 trillion economies. This amount that I'm talking about is small change for an economy of our kind if we want to cleanse our democracy, which is most crucial. Because today, the problem is that people are investing. The day when industrialists take over states and the country is not far. Before they used to fund candidates, today they are in this, possibly in this house, and then tomorrow possibly they will be in local Myanmar. Basically the point is that this is a tide that needs to be reversed. And we have the capacity to raise the kinds of issues, suggest the kind of solutions that will reverse this tide. Because everywhere you see it is only plutocrats who are dominating, we need to reverse that. So let us go ahead and understand the spirit with which I have made this proposal, which is that we need to reintroduce democracy in its truest sense. We need to drive out these forces who will only spend money and spend illegal money and corrupt the voters and subvert the very foundation of our democracy. And that's I think everyone here will agree that when people spend illegal money and invest resources in that manner, then they corrupt the system. They will set up the roadblocks, collect the toll, they will extort, and they will destroy the economy through all kinds of methods. And whatever laws and regulations you come up with will not change things. You will see horse trading in MLAs. You will see all the kinds of great dramas that we are witnessing across the country on a daily basis. So I take his spirit, that he is understanding where we are trying to go, that we want to restore the honor and sanctity of these houses, that we want to restore the festival of democracy in its truest sense, and therefore I would urge the minister to consider, along with everything else, these other suggestions that I've given you, and with due respect to you, with hope that you will actually take these things forward, I will withdraw my bills. Thank you.
Thank you. So you are withdrawing your bill. Fine. Professor Rajiv Gowda, you are withdrawing the bill?
Yes, sir, I am.
Shall I?
But before I do that, Jairam Ramesh wants to speak.
No, I know.
Reply again, sir.
Unconventional. Has he leave of the House to withdraw the bill? The bill is withdrawn. Sri Sanjay Singh to move for leave to introduce the Public Health Prevention, Control and Management of Epidemics Bill 2020.
धन्यवाद महोदय। मैं प्रस्ताव करता हूं कि लोक स्वास्थ्य के लिए और महामारियों के निवारण के नियंत्रण और प्रबंधन तथा उसके आनुषंगिक विषयों का उपबंध करने के लिए विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति दी जाए।
The question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those in favor, please say yes. Those in favor will please say yes. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Mr. Sanjay Singh.
मैं विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करता हूं।
The children belonging to the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes reservation and compulsory display of seats by educational institutions, Bill 2015. Mr. P.L. Punia to move a motion for consideration of the children belonging to the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes reservation and compulsory display of seats by educational institutions, Bill 2015. Not present. P.L. Punia. Domestic Workers Regulation of Work and Social Security Bill 2017. Mr. Oscar Fernandez to move a motion for consideration of the Domestic Workers Regulation of Work and Social Security Bill 2017. Mr. Oscar Fernandez, not present. The Prohibition of Multi-Digit Lotteries Bill 2019. Mr. Vijay Goyal to move a motion for consideration of the Prohibition of Multi-Digit Lotteries Bill 2019.
इससे महोदय एक चीज मुझको कहना है कि नहीं है वो ठीक है इंट्रोड्यूस में लेकिन एक
Not here.
नहीं ठीक है नॉट हियर लेकिन
The mover is not here.
नेक्स्ट
Mover not present, please. What
अगर अनुमति हो तो
regarding that? Regarding that bill? No, when the mover has not moved, you cannot say anything about it.
ठीक ठीक
The Constitution Amendment Bill 2015, amendment of Article 341 and 342. Mr. Veer Singh to move a motion for consideration of the Constitution Amendment Bill 2015. Mr. Veer Singh, not present.
Special mention.
Special mentions. Mr. Narayan Das Gupta.